Well, today on Rethink Real Estate, I'm fresh out of a situation that has really pissed me off. So again, you're going to have to forgive me of the direct nature of what this episode is, but hopefully you understand the message. Thanks again. Welcome to Rethink Real Estate. My name is Ben Brady, and this is a real estate podcast aimed to deliver sales strategies, marketing tips, and business insights from industry experts and myself to build a listing-focused business for the future. Let's get into it. So today, I don't know whether or not this is a cry for help or whether or not this is a rant. So you're going to have to forgive me for a moment. But the volume of offers that we have had recently where I've had absolute admission from the other agent on the other side that this offer is simply an exploratory process for the buyer to figure out whether or not they want the home. They want to wrap it up, then they want to give themselves time to then make a decision, only to then fall out. I don't know where I entirely stand on this because, as you can appreciate, I don't represent buyers. I only negotiate with agents or buyers on behalf of sellers through the auction process. However, there's a couple of things that really are terrible in this process for many, many sellers. I'm going to give an example of this on a property that we had, Fowler Street in Oceanside. David Acosta, the listing agent on it, he wouldn't mind me giving this example because one of the biggest challenges that we have in the real estate industry is that we are obligated to present all offers to sellers. And again, I don't know that that is a bad thing, but it is a challenge because I'll give you an example of this. We got an offer for $990,000 prior to auction on a property. Okay. And it had inspection contingency for 17 days. It had a loan contingency for 21 days. It was not an attractive offer to accept whatsoever. But let me give you an understanding of where the problem lies in this. My seller's non-disclosed reserve on that was $920,000. And most of our other interests was all around that 9 to 920 mark. But now what has happened is it is presented to the seller a false economy that doesn't exist. Now you can say to me, it is our responsibility that we need to go down the path of educating our client, that it doesn't mean anything. It is basically a blank check in the essence of the fact that, there's no signature on it. You can fill in any amount that you want and then it doesn't get cashed. I get that. It's our responsibility to make sure that they're aware of that. But really, it made it an incredible uphill battle in order to get them to understand the market. Now, again, we ended up going into escrow on that property prior to auction day at $910,000. We got a really clean deal done. And, at the end of the day, David did a remarkable job. But the problem is that they probably could have got more than $910,000 because they said no to a few other offers leading into that because of the $990,000 offer that was contingent to the cow flying over the moon. And the admission from the other agent was that, oh, well, look, our buyers just want some time to understand whether or not it's the right property for them. They had realistically absolutely I would say the likelihood of them moving forward on that deal would have been lower than 10% if we had accepted it. Now, I am not saying that you shouldn't write offers. I am saying that you need to understand if you're a buyer's agent representing a buyer, what that offer will do to those agents on the other side of that deal. At the end of the day, those sellers lost $10,000 in the transaction from not accepting a higher offer that came onto the table at the same time as the 990 because it clouded their judgment to the fullest extent. July was an extremely difficult month from a perspective of keeping deals together, and we are unbelievably fortunate with the way that we operate with auction and providing all the disclosure and reports up front. I'm suggesting that if you've got traditional real estate, you need to be doing that as well at the moment. And a leading indicator of somebody that's not willing to move forward is somebody that doesn't want to go through and read the inspection and go through and do that detail before making a decision. I think it is systemic within the real estate industry at the moment that if we accepted that $990,000, my sellers' expectations would have incredibly ballooned. And then secondarily to that is that property would have had a 90% likelihood that it would have fallen out of escrow. Not only then do I have the uphill battle in order to educate them on the fact that price was not an actual real price. They were simply doing it because they knew they could have secured the property in order to then make a decision and have a get out of jail free card. Okay, is that it also hurts the reputational element of that property. The reputational damage isn't worth accepting an offer just for the sake of it. And that's one of the things that I do need to plead with listing agents on at this point. I have to catch our auction agents all the time in the midst of making traditional decisions, like sending out counter offers that are too high or counteroffers at all because of lazy negotiation and their inability to communicate with people. But secondarily is that I have to catch them all the time ready to accept offers where, with a little bit of pushback on the inspections or the finance period or whatever it might be, is that they end up removing them. The amount of situations that I'm involved in going, no, we can't accept that. Well, no, it's at the price the sellers want. No, but it's not worth the paper it's written on if it's got a 14-day inspection period or contingency attached to it. Have you looked through the financial details of these people? Also, have you looked at what other offers that they've placed? Have you looked at all of those elements before we accept this? But the inspection element is a get out of jail free card. And we need to make sure that I'm not saying that they need to accept the inspection that you have on the property. I'm saying that if they haven't been through it at all and don't have genuine causes of concern where they want a third-party opinion, they are not the buyer. They are simply trying to tie something up, and the agent on the other end is encouraging them to do so. Be careful with the false economies that accepting high offers or even getting them creates. Be careful of that. Don't encourage. You should be communicating with the other agent. You should be communicating with the buyers if they're coming direct and letting them know, well, what is the offer? Well, we're going to be putting this on paper, but it's got the guys, please don't put that in writing if it's got those contingencies attached to it. Okay, my seller won't accept that prior to auction or whatever it may be. Have the conversations with the sellers up front. You know, one of the episodes that we've done a long, long time ago, and maybe I'll do another one, is a 24-hour meeting that you have with the sellers and you get them on board that we are not going to be accepting and we don't want to encourage offers that have inspection contingencies attached to them without any cause for actual concern that they haven't gone through. Get them on board with that in the very first degree. Get them on board with understanding what a cleanliness of an offer is. Express to them in the beginning and hide out in the open the false economies that are being created within the marketplace at this point. This is an issue. This is a problem. The next thing that I want to address, only because I've been the bearer of this, and you will understand why when this property closes in August and I go through the case study, at the end of this month, okay, is that the bullshit analogies from other agents saying that, no, my client's still interested, speaking on behalf of their clients, only for you to then negotiate or get your seller to a position which then that client doesn't accept. Be careful of the narrative of other agents. The inability for people to communicate with their parties at this point, or how scared people are in a scarcity market to have actual direct conversations with their clients, whether it be a seller or whether it be a buyer. Situation that will remain unnamed until the property does close is that we put some serious pressure on our seller to give him an understanding of market value, because we checked with the agent that stipulated that their buyer was still there in the negotiation. This is a couple of days after auction. You know, it took a little while to piece the pieces together, which is a whole learning in its own right, and I'll take you through that in the case study. But realistically, okay, is that those agents had not had any communication with their buyer at all. They had led us to believe that they had. They wanted us to take action in order for them then to communicate with their client. They weren't going back and speaking. And what essentially happened is that we got our seller down to a position, right, which was fair enough. It was well over market value still down to the position, but we got him there, only to be incredibly pissed off at us when the buyer said that they were no longer interested because the agents didn't have the courage to be upfront with us. Keep in mind, guys, there is always the thing under the thing. There is an underlying element in all of your negotiations that happen that we need to be incredibly aware of. And part of that needs to be looked into first. Is that buyer's agent actually communicating with their client, or have they just found a client that has contacted them, or they found them in an open house, they don't really have a relationship with them, and they are just executing to try and throw shit against the wall and see what sticks? So you can decide whether this is a rant, whether this is a cry for help, or whether this is actual information that you need to be aware of. Hopefully, it makes you think twice if you're representing a buyer. Hopefully, it makes you think twice when you're negotiating for your client's biggest asset. Thanks again. So about 75% of our audience hasn't liked, followed, or subscribed to our podcast. It would mean the world to us, and it would help this podcast more than you know to expand our reach if you were to like, follow, or subscribe on any of the platforms that you're watching or listening on. Thanks again.